In this story of heartache and hope, we explore the lives of a family torn apart by betrayal and brought back together by love and forgiveness. Shattered Trust. The tale of a cheating wife and the road to redemption follows Ryan, a young man grappling with the painful discovery of his aunt's infidelity and its impact on his beloved family. As secrets unravel and emotions run high, witness the journey of healing and reconciliation that tests the strength of familial bonds. Stay tuned to uncover how they navigate through the darkest times and find a way to rebuild their shattered trust. Ryan adjusted the collar of his shirt as he looked in the mirror, a ritual that helped him prepare for the day mentally. At 20, he was a tall, lean young man with thoughtful brown eyes that seemed too mature for his age. Life hadn't been easy for Ryan. Since his mother's death, he had lived with his father, David, in their old family home in a small coastal town in California. The house always felt too large and too silent, its spacious rooms echoing the absence of his mother's warmth. The summer sun streamed through the windows, casting a golden hue over the wooden floors and filling the house with a deceptive sense of peace. Outside, the town was alive with the sounds of waves crashing against the shore and the distant chatter of tourists enjoying the summer season. Ryan sighed, brushing a hand through his dark hair before heading downstairs. David was already in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. He was a man in his late 40s, with graying hair and a tired but kind expression. The loss of his wife had aged him prematurely, and there was a permanent sadness in his eyes. Despite this, he made a conscious effort to keep life as normal as possible for Ryan. "Morning, son," David greeted, his voice warm but tinged with a hint of melancholy. "Morning, Dad," Ryan replied, forcing a smile. He poured himself a cup of coffee and joined his father at the table. They ate in relative silence, each lost in their thoughts. After breakfast, Ryan decided to take a walk along the beach. It was his way of finding solace amidst the turmoil of his emotions. The beach was only a short walk from their home, and it had always been a place of comfort for him. As he strolled along the shoreline, the salty breeze ruffled his hair, and he felt a fleeting sense of calm. Ryan's thoughts drifted to his uncles, Kevin and Ian. They had been his anchors in the storm that followed his mother's passing. Kevin, the elder at 40, was a stern but fair man who managed a local warehouse. His wife, Ava, was 10 years his junior, a gentle soul with a smile that could light up any room. Ian, the younger uncle at 34, was more laid back and often the life of any gathering. Both uncles worked at the same warehouse, which left Ava often at home, managing the household and looking after Ryan's grandmother, Martha. The small coastal town was a tight-knit community, where everyone knew each other. Ryan's family was well respected, and the loss of his mother had been felt by many. As he walked past the familiar houses and shops, he was greeted by neighbors and friends, all of whom offered words of comfort and support. Ryan's phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him from his reverie. It was a message from Kevin, inviting him over for lunch. Ryan quickly replied with an affirmative and made his way to his uncle's house, which was only a few blocks away. The sight of Kevin's house brought a smile to Ryan's face. It was a charming, two-story home with a well-kept garden that Ava tended to meticulously. Flowers of various colors bloomed in the front yard, and the scent of roses mingled with the sea air. Ryan knocked on the door, and within moments, Ava opened it, her face lighting up with a warm smile. "Ryan, it's so good to see you," she exclaimed, pulling him into a hug. "It's good to see you too, Aunt Ava," Ryan replied, feeling a sense of comfort in her embrace. Come in," she urged, leading him into the house. The interior was cozy and inviting, filled with the aroma of freshly cooked food. Kevin was in the kitchen, finishing up the preparations for lunch. "Hey, Ryan," Kevin greeted, his stern face softening with a smile. "Glad you could join us." "Wouldn't miss it for the world," Ryan replied, taking a seat at the dining table. The meal was a lively affair, filled with laughter and conversation. Ian arrived a little later, bringing his usual exuberance to the gathering. The family talked about everything from work to the latest happenings in the town. For a brief moment, Ryan felt a semblance of normalcy, as if the weight of his mother's absence had lifted just a little. After lunch, the family gathered in the living room. Kevin and Ian shared stories from their youth, while Ava and Ryan's grandmother, Martha, listened with amusement. Ryan found himself watching Ava more closely than usual. There was something about her presence that had always been comforting, but lately, he had started to notice things he hadn't before. The way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, the gracefulness of her movements, and the warmth of her touch. Ryan tried to push these thoughts away, feeling a deep sense of guilt for even entertaining them. Ava had always been a figure of maternal affection, and he knew he shouldn't feel this way. But the feelings lingered, like a shadow at the back of his mind. As the afternoon turned into evening, the family decided to take a walk along the beach. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the water. They strolled along the shoreline, the gentle waves lapping at their feet. It was one of those rare moments when the entire family came together, and Ryan cherished it. "How are you holding up, Ryan?" Kevin asked, falling into step beside him. "I'm managing," Ryan replied, trying to keep his tone light. "It's been tough, but I'm getting through it." Kevin nodded, his expression thoughtful. "If you ever need to talk, you know we're here for you, right?" "Yeah, I know. Thanks, Uncle Kevin." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, the sound of the waves providing a soothing backdrop. Ryan glanced over at Ava, who was walking with Ian and Martha a little ahead. Her laughter floated back to him on the breeze, and he felt a pang of longing that he quickly pushed aside. As the sky darkened, the family made their way back to the house. They said their goodbyes, and Ryan started the short walk home. The streets were quiet, the town settling into the peaceful rhythm of the night. Ryan's thoughts were a jumble of emotions as he walked, the events of the day replaying in his mind. When he finally reached home, David was sitting on the porch, a book in his hands. He looked up and smiled as Ryan approached. "Had a good time?" David asked. "Yeah, it was nice," Ryan replied, taking a seat beside his father. They sat in companionable silence for a while, the only sound the distant crash of the waves. Ryan felt a sense of contentment, despite the turmoil inside him. He knew that no matter what happened, he had his family to lean on. As he got ready for bed that night, Ryan couldn't shake the image of Ava from his mind. Her smile, her laughter, the way she had hugged him earlier, it all lingered, making him feel both comforted and conflicted. He knew he had to find a way to deal with these feelings, to return to the innocence of their previous relationship. But as he drifted off to sleep, he couldn't help but wonder if things would ever be the same again. As the days of summer passed, Ryan found himself increasingly drawn to Ava. His initial sense of comfort in her presence began to morph into something more complex and troubling. He was acutely aware of how his heart raced whenever she was near, how his eyes followed her every move, and how his mind lingered on her smile long after they had parted ways. It was a lazy afternoon when Ryan found himself alone at home. David had gone to visit some old friends, leaving Ryan to his own devices. He tried to focus on his summer reading, but the words on the page seemed to blur together, his mind drifting back to Ava. He decided to visit his uncle's house again, hoping the familiar environment would bring him some peace. When Ryan arrived, the house was unusually quiet. He knocked on the door, and Ava answered, her face lighting up with that same warm smile that never failed to ease his worries. "Ryan, what a pleasant surprise," she said, stepping aside to let him in. "Hey, Aunt Ava, I hope I'm not intruding," Ryan replied, feeling a little nervous. "Not at all. Kevin and Ian are at the warehouse, and Martha is napping." "It's just you and me," Ava said, closing the door behind him. Ryan followed her into the living room, where the soft hum of an air conditioner filled the silence. Ava had been reading a book, her reading glasses perched on her nose, and a cup of tea sat on the table beside her. She invited Ryan to sit, and they fell into a comfortable conversation about mundane things, books, the weather, and local events. As they talked, Ryan couldn't help but notice the small details about Ava that seemed to captivate him. The way her fingers delicately turned the pages of her book, the gentle lilt of her laughter, and the subtle fragrance of jasmine that always seemed to surround her. He felt a warm flush creeping up his neck and quickly looked away, trying to regain his composure. "Would you like some tea?" Ava offered, breaking the silence. "Sure, That sounds great, Ryan replied, grateful for the distraction. Ava got up to make tea, and Ryan watched her move gracefully around the kitchen. There was something almost ethereal about her, a quality that made her seem both real and unreal at the same time. He shook his head, trying to clear the thoughts that threatened to overwhelm him. When Ava returned with the tea, they continued their conversation. Ryan found himself opening up to her more than he ever had before, sharing his thoughts and feelings about his mother's death, his father's sadness, and the emptiness that seemed to pervade his life. Ava listened with a compassionate ear, her eyes filled with understanding and empathy. Ryan, it's okay to feel lost and confused, she said softly. Losing someone you love is never easy, and it's natural to struggle with the pain. But you have a strong heart, and I know you'll find your way. Her words were like a balm to his wounded soul. Ryan felt a surge of gratitude and affection for Ava, but along with it came a wave of guilt. How could he harbor such feelings for his uncle's wife? He knew it was wrong, but the emotions were beyond his control. As the afternoon wore on, the atmosphere between them grew more intimate. Ava's gaze lingered on him a little longer, and her touches felt more deliberate. Ryan's heart raced, his mind a whirl of conflicting thoughts and desires. He wanted to stay in that moment forever, yet he also wanted to run away and escape the confusion that plagued him. At one point, Ava placed her hand on his arm, a simple gesture of comfort that sent a jolt through Ryan's body. He looked up, meeting her eyes, and for a brief moment, he saw something in her gaze that mirrored his own feelings. It was a fleeting glimpse, but it was enough to unsettle him deeply. I should probably get going, Ryan said abruptly, standing up and breaking the spell that had settled over them. Ava looked surprised but quickly masked it with a smile. Of course, Ryan, I'm glad you came by. Don't be a stranger, okay? I won't. Thanks for the tea and the talk, Aunt Ava, Ryan replied, his voice a little strained. As he walked back home, Ryan's mind was a storm of emotions. He replayed the afternoon in his head, analyzing every word, every gesture, and every look. He knew he needed to get a grip on his feelings, but the more he tried, the stronger they seemed to become. Over the next few days, Ryan found himself avoiding Ava as much as possible. He felt guilty for the way he felt and didn't trust himself to be around her without his emotions betraying him. He threw himself into activities to keep his mind occupied, running errands for his father, helping out at the local community center, and spending more time with his friends. Despite his efforts, thoughts of Ava continued to invade his mind. He would catch himself daydreaming about her smile or the way she laughed, only to snap back to reality with a pang of guilt. His emotions were a tangled mess, and he didn't know how to unravel them. One particularly hot afternoon, Ryan was at the local park, trying to distract himself with a game of basketball with his friends. The physical exertion helped to clear his mind, if only temporarily. As he sat on the bench, panting and sweating, he checked his phone and saw a message from Ava. Hi Ryan, I hope you're doing well. Kevin and Ian are working late tonight, and I was thinking of having a movie night. Would you like to join me? Ryan's heart skipped a beat. He knew he should decline, but the thought of spending time with Ava was too tempting to resist. He quickly typed out a response. Sure, I'd love to. What time should I come over? How about 7 p.m.? See you then, smiley face. Ryan felt a mix of excitement and dread as he made his way home to freshen up. He knew he was walking a dangerous line, but he couldn't help himself. The allure of Ava was too strong, and he was powerless to resist it. As the evening approached, Ryan dressed in casual clothes and made his way to Kevin and Ava's house. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the town. When he arrived, Ava greeted him at the door with a smile that made his heart race. Come on in, Ryan. I've got everything set up in the living room, she said, leading him inside. The living room was cozy, with soft lighting and a selection of snacks laid out on the coffee table. Ava had chosen a classic romantic comedy, and they settled on the couch to watch. As the movie played, Ryan found it increasingly difficult to focus on the screen. His mind kept drifting to Ava, who was sitting so close that he could feel the warmth of her body. At one point, Ava reached for a bowl of popcorn, and their hands brushed. Ryan felt a jolt of electricity at the contact, and he quickly pulled his hand away, his heart pounding. Ava noticed his reaction and gave him a curious look. "Are you okay, Ryan?" she asked softly. "Yeah, I'm fine," he replied, his voice a little shaky. "Just a bit tired, I guess." Ava nodded, her gaze lingering on him for a moment before she turned back to the movie. Ryan tried to relax, but his mind was a whirlwind of emotions. He knew he was on the brink of something dangerous, and he didn't know how to pull back. As the movie ended, Ava turned to Ryan with a smile. "Thanks for joining me tonight, Ryan. I really enjoyed your company." "Me too, Aunt Ava." "It was nice," Ryan replied, trying to keep his voice steady. They stood up, and Ava walked him to the door. As he was about to leave, she placed a gentle hand on his arm, stopping him in his tracks. "Ryan, if you ever need to talk or if you're feeling lonely, you know I'm here for you, right?" she said, her voice filled with genuine concern. Ryan looked into her eyes, seeing the warmth and kindness that had always drawn him to her. He felt a surge of emotions, a mix of gratitude, affection, and something deeper that he couldn't quite name. "Thank you, Aunt Ava. That means a lot," he said softly. Ava smiled and gave him a quick hug. "Good night, Ryan. Take care." "Good night, Aunt Ava," Ryan replied, stepping out into the cool night air. As he walked home, Ryan's mind was a tumult of thoughts and feelings. He knew he had to find a way to navigate this confusing emotional landscape, to somehow return to the innocence of their previous relationship. But as he would soon discover, some lines, once crossed, change everything. The next few days passed in a blur for Ryan. He tried to keep himself busy, throwing himself into his chores and hobbies, but the thoughts of Ava lingered at the back of his mind. He knew he needed a distraction, something to take his mind off the confusing emotions swirling inside him. One particularly hot afternoon, Ryan decided to visit the local library. It was a place he had always found solace in, a quiet sanctuary filled with books and knowledge. As he wandered through the aisles, running his fingers along the spines of the books, he felt a sense of calm wash over him. He picked out a few books and found a quiet corner to read. For a while, he was able to lose himself in the stories, but eventually, his thoughts drifted back to Ava. He wondered what she was doing, if she was thinking about him too. The thought made his heart race, and he quickly shook his head, trying to dispel the image. As the afternoon wore on, Ryan decided to head home. As he walked through the town, he saw Ian's car parked outside a local cafe. Curious, he decided to drop in and say hello. He found Ian sitting at a table, chatting animatedly with a young woman Ryan didn't recognize. "Hey, Ian," Ryan greeted, approaching the table. Ian looked up, his face breaking into a wide smile. "Ryan, what a surprise. Come, join us." Ryan took a seat and introduced himself to the woman, who Ian introduced as a colleague from the warehouse. They chatted for a while, and Ryan couldn't help but notice the easy camaraderie between Ian and his colleague. There was something comforting about Ian's presence. His carefree spirit always seemed to lift the mood. After a while, the woman excused herself, leaving Ryan and Ian alone. Ian leaned back in his chair, looking at Ryan with a curious expression. "How have you been, Ryan? You seem a bit distracted lately," Ian said, his tone light but probing. Ryan hesitated, not sure how much he should share. "I've just had a lot on my mind, I guess," he replied vaguely. Ian nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "If you ever need to talk, you know I'm here for you, right?" "Yeah, thanks, Ian. I appreciate it," Ryan said, feeling a surge of gratitude for his uncle's concern. They chatted for a while longer before Ryan decided to head home. As he walked, he thought about Ian's words. Maybe he did need to talk to someone about what he was feeling. But who could he trust with such confusing and potentially dangerous emotions? When he got home, David was in the garden, tending to the roses. Ryan joined him, finding comfort in the familiar routine. They worked in companionable silence for a while before David spoke. "Is everything okay, Ryan? You seem a bit off lately," David said, his voice gentle. Ryan looked at his father, seeing the concern in his eyes. "I'm fine, Dad. Just dealing with some stuff. David nodded, his gaze understanding. You know you can always talk to me, right? About anything. I know. Thanks, Dad, Ryan replied, feeling a pang of guilt for not being more open with his father. As the days passed, Ryan continued to wrestle with his feelings for Ava. He found himself avoiding her more and more, not trusting himself to be around her without his emotions betraying him. He threw himself into activities to keep his mind occupied, but the thoughts of Ava continued to invade his mind. One evening, Ryan was at home, scrolling through his phone when he received a text from Ava. Hi Ryan, can you come over? I need help with something. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. He knew he should probably decline, but the thought of seeing Ava was too tempting to resist. Sure, I'll be there in a few minutes, he replied, grabbing his keys and heading out. When he arrived at Kevin and Ava's house, he found Ava in the living room, sorting through a pile of old photos and documents. Hey, Aunt Ava, what do you need help with? Ryan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. I found these old photos and documents while cleaning the attic. I thought it would be nice to organize them, but it's a bit overwhelming, Ava replied, looking up with a smile. Ryan sat down beside her and they began sorting through the pile. As they worked, Ryan found himself relaxing, the familiar task taking his mind off his worries. They laughed over old photos and shared stories about the family, the atmosphere light and easy. At one point, Ava excused herself to make some tea, leaving Ryan alone with the photos. As he sorted through them, he came across a small, locked box. Curiosity piqued, he tried to open it but found it securely locked. What's this? He asked when Ava returned with the tea. Ava's eyes widened slightly when she saw the box. Oh, that's just some old keepsakes. I've been meaning to go through it, but I don't have the key. Ryan nodded, setting the box aside. As they continued sorting, his mind kept drifting back to the locked box. There was something about it that intrigued him, a sense of mystery that he couldn't shake. Later that night, as Ryan lay in bed, he found himself thinking about the box again. What could be inside? Why was Ava so secretive about it? The questions gnawed at him, and he resolved to find out more. The next day, Ryan returned to Kevin and Ava's house under the pretense of continuing to help with the photo sorting. When he arrived, he found the house empty, a note from Ava explaining that she had gone out for some errands and would be back later. Seizing the opportunity, Ryan went to the living room and retrieved the locked box. He examined it closely, trying to find a way to open it without the key. After a few minutes of fiddling, he managed to pry it open with a small screwdriver he found in the kitchen. Inside the box, Ryan found a collection of old letters and photographs. As he sifted through them, his heart began to race. The letters were written in a delicate, flowing script, and as he read, he realized they were love letters between Ava and Ian. Ryan's hands trembled as he read the letters, the words blurring together as the implications sank in. Ava and Ian had been involved in a secret relationship, one that had been going on for years. The photographs confirmed it, showing the two of them together in intimate moments, their faces filled with a happiness that Ryan had never seen before. Feeling a mix of anger, betrayal, and confusion, Ryan quickly put everything back in the box and returned it to its place. He sat back, his mind reeling. What should he do with this information? How could he confront Ava and Ian about their betrayal? And what would happen to Kevin if he found out? That evening, Ryan found it impossible to act normal around Ava and Ian. Every word, every gesture from them felt loaded with hidden meaning. He watched them closely, his suspicion growing with every passing moment. The next day, Ryan decided to confront Ava. He couldn't keep this secret to himself any longer, it was eating him alive. When he arrived at their house, he found Ava alone in the kitchen, preparing dinner. Aunt Ava, we need to talk, Ryan said, his voice tense. Ava looked up, surprised by his tone. Of course, Ryan. What's on your mind? Ryan took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. I found the letters. The ones between you and Ian. Ava's face went pale, her hands trembling slightly. Ryan, I can explain. No, you can't, Ryan interrupted, his voice rising. You and Ian have been lying to all of us. How could you do this to Uncle Kevin? Tears welled up in Ava's eyes, and she reached out to him. Ryan, please, just listen. Ryan pulled away, his anger and hurt boiling over. No, Aunt Ava, I don't want to hear any excuses. You've betrayed our family, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you. Without another word, Ryan turned and left the house, his heart heavy with the weight of his discovery. He knew he had to confront Ian next, but he wasn't sure if he had the strength to face another betrayal. Over the next few days, Ryan avoided Ava and Ian as much as possible. He needed time to process everything, to figure out what to do next. He spent hours walking along the beach, the rhythmic crash of the waves providing a small measure of comfort. Finally, he decided it was time to talk to Ian. He couldn't keep running from this, he needed answers. When he found Ian at the warehouse, he asked to speak with him in private. What's up, Ryan? Ian asked, his usual carefree demeanor masking any hint of guilt. Ryan took a deep breath, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. I know about you and Ava. I found the letters. Ian's face went blank, his eyes widening slightly. Ryan, it's not what you think. Don't lie to me, Ian, Ryan said, his voice trembling with anger. I've read the letters, I've seen the photos. How could you do this to your own brother? Ian's shoulders slumped, a look of defeat crossing his face. Ryan, I never meant for any of this to happen. Ava and it just happened. We didn't plan it. Ryan shook his head, his anger giving way to a deep sense of sadness. You have to tell Uncle Kevin. He deserves to know the truth. Ian looked pained, but he nodded slowly. You're right. He does. But please, Ryan, give me a chance to explain everything to him. Let me be the one to tell him. Ryan hesitated, torn between his anger and his love for his family. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but if you don't tell him soon, I will. Ian agreed, and they parted ways, each lost in their own thoughts. Ryan knew the days ahead would be difficult, but he hoped that, somehow, his family could find a way to heal from this betrayal. As he walked home, Ryan felt a strange sense of relief. The truth was out, and now it was up to Ava and Ian to make things right. He hoped they could find a way to mend the broken bonds of their family, but he knew it wouldn't be easy. The summer sun was setting as Ryan reached his house, casting a warm, golden light over the town. He stood on the porch for a moment, watching the colors of the sky shift and change. Despite everything, he felt a small glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, his family could find a way to move forward. The days that followed were filled with a tense, uneasy silence. Ryan avoided going to his uncle's house, afraid of the confrontation that was inevitably coming. He knew Ian needed time to gather the courage to tell Kevin, but the waiting was excruciating. Finally, the day arrived. Ryan received a text from Ian asking him to come over that evening. The message was short and to the point, but it was enough to make Ryan's heart race. He knew this was it, the moment when everything would change. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the quiet streets, Ryan made his way to Kevin and Ava's house. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions: fear, anger, sadness, and a faint glimmer of hope that somehow, they would get through this. When he arrived, the house was quiet. Ava was in the kitchen, preparing dinner with a tense expression on her face. Ian was sitting in the living room, staring blankly at the television. Kevin was nowhere to be seen. He's in the garden, Ian said, his voice low and strained, as if reading Ryan's thoughts. Ryan nodded and made his way outside. He found Kevin among his beloved rose bushes, meticulously pruning and tending to them as he always did when he needed to clear his mind. Kevin looked up when he heard Ryan approach, a warm smile spreading across his face. Hey, Ryan, he said, wiping his hands on his pants. Come to help an old man with his roses? Ryan forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Actually, Uncle Kevin, there's something we need to talk about. It's important. Kevin's smile faded, replaced by a look of concern. He set down his pruning shears and turned to face Ryan fully. What's going on, son? Before Ryan could respond, Ian appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. Kevin, we need to have a family meeting. Now. Kevin looked between them, confusion and worry etched across his features. He nodded slowly and followed them back into the house. Ava was waiting in the living room, her eyes red and puffy from crying. The tension in the room was palpable as they all took their seats. Ian took a deep breath, looking at Kevin with a mixture of guilt and determination. Kevin, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been hiding for a long time. Kevin's eyes widened slightly, but he remained silent, waiting for Ian to continue. Ava and we developed feelings for each other. It started as a close friendship, but it turned into something more. We never acted on it physically, but the emotional connection was there, and it was wrong. I'm so sorry, Kevin. The room fell silent as Kevin absorbed Ian's words. His face went pale, and his eyes filled with a mixture of shock, anger, and hurt. He turned to Ava, who was trembling, tears streaming down her face. Ava, is this true? Kevin's voice was barely above a whisper, laden with pain. Ava nodded, unable to meet his gaze. I'm so sorry, Kevin. I never meant for this to happen. I love you, but I got lost in my own confusion and loneliness. Please, forgive me. Kevin stood up abruptly, his hands shaking. He took a few steps away from them, trying to process the betrayal. Ryan watched, his heart breaking for his uncle. Kevin finally turned back to them, his face a mask of resolve. I need some time to think. I can't deal with this right now. He walked out of the room, leaving the rest of them in a stunned silence. Ryan felt a deep sense of guilt for being the catalyst that brought everything to light, but he knew it was necessary. The secrets had been like a poison, and now they could begin to heal, even if the process was painful. Over the next few days, Kevin avoided his family, spending most of his time in the garden or taking long walks along the beach. Ryan tried to give him space but made sure to be there if Kevin needed to talk. Ava and Ian kept their distance, understanding that Kevin needed time to process everything. One evening, as the sun set over the ocean, Ryan found Kevin sitting on the porch, staring out at the horizon. He approached cautiously, not wanting to intrude but needing to check on his uncle. Mind if I join you? Ryan asked softly. Kevin looked up, his eyes tired but no longer filled with the raw pain that had been there before. He nodded, and Ryan sat down beside him. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the gentle crashing of the waves. Finally, Kevin spoke, his voice quiet and reflective. I never saw it coming, you know. I thought we were happy. I thought I was a good husband, Kevin said, his eyes distant. You are a good husband, Uncle Kevin. This isn't your fault, Ryan replied, his voice firm. Kevin sighed, rubbing his temples. I just don't understand how it happened. How did I miss it? Sometimes people get lost, and they make mistakes. It doesn't mean they don't love you. It just means they're human, Ryan said gently. Kevin nodded slowly, absorbing Ryan's words. I don't know what to do, Ryan. I don't know if I can forgive them. Take your time, Uncle Kevin. There's no rush. Just know that we're all here for you, no matter what, Ryan said, placing a comforting hand on Kevin's shoulder. Kevin looked at him, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Thank you, Ryan. You've been a great help through all this. I don't know what I'd do without you. Ryan felt a surge of warmth and gratitude. We're family, Uncle Kevin. We'll get through this together. In the days that followed, Kevin slowly began to open up more. He spent time with Ava, talking through their issues and trying to understand where things had gone wrong. They both agreed to seek counseling, hoping to mend their fractured relationship. Ian, feeling the weight of his actions, decided it was best to move out for a while. He found a small apartment nearby, giving Kevin and Ava the space they needed to heal. Ryan helped Ian with the move, understanding the difficult position his uncle was in. As summer began to fade into autumn, the family found a new rhythm. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments of tension and pain, but there was also a sense of hope. They were committed to rebuilding their relationships and finding a way to move forward. One evening, as they all gathered for dinner, Ryan looked around the table at his family. Despite everything, they were still together, still fighting for each other. It gave him a sense of peace, knowing that they were stronger than the secrets that had threatened to tear them apart. Kevin raised his glass, a determined look in his eyes. To family, we may be flawed, but we're stronger together. They all raised their glasses, a feeling of solidarity washing over them. As they clinked their glasses and shared a meal, Ryan felt a renewed sense of hope for the future. They had faced the darkness and come out the other side, and he knew they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The transition from summer to autumn brought a subtle shift in the atmosphere. The vibrant energy of the town mellowed, replaced by a calm serenity. The leaves began to turn shades of amber and gold, casting a warm glow over the coastal landscape. Ryan found solace in the changing seasons, a reminder that life, like nature, could renew itself. The family continued to navigate the aftermath of the revelations. Kevin and Ava attended counseling sessions, working through the layers of hurt and mistrust. The process was slow and often painful, but they were both committed to rebuilding their relationship. Kevin, while still wounded, showed a determination to understand and forgive, and Ava was equally dedicated to earning back his trust. Ian, having moved to a nearby apartment, respected their need for space. He continued to work at the warehouse and made efforts to repair his relationship with Kevin from a distance. He visited the family occasionally, each visit a step towards healing the rift between the brothers. Ryan observed these changes with a mix of hope and apprehension. He had been the catalyst for the confrontation, and while he knew it was necessary, he couldn't help but feel responsible for the pain that followed. He channeled his energy into supporting his family, being there for Kevin and Ava, and maintaining a close bond with Ian. One crisp autumn morning, Ryan decided to visit Ian at his new apartment. He wanted to check on his uncle and see how he was coping. When he arrived, Ian greeted him with a warm smile, though there was an underlying sadness in his eyes. "Hey, Ryan, come on in," Ian said, stepping aside to let him enter. Ryan looked around the modest apartment, noting the simplicity and lack of personal touches. It was a stark contrast to the lively, warm environment of Kevin and Ava's home. "How are you holding up, Uncle Ian?" Ryan asked, taking a seat on the couch. Ian sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's been tough, but I'm managing. I miss being with the family, though. It's strange, being apart from them." Ryan nodded, understanding the sentiment. "They miss you too. I think, in time, things will get better. It's just going to take a while." Ian looked at Ryan, his expression earnest. "I know I messed up, Ryan. And I know it's going to take a lot to make things right. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Ryan reached out and placed a reassuring hand on Ian's shoulder. "I believe you, Uncle Ian. And I know Kevin does too. Just keep being patient and give it time." As the days passed, Ryan continued to support his family in any way he could. He spent more time with his father, David, who had been a pillar of strength through the ordeal. David's quiet wisdom and steady presence provided Ryan with a sense of stability, a reminder that no matter how tumultuous life became, family remained a constant. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, David turned to Ryan with a thoughtful expression. "You've grown a lot through all this, Ryan. I'm proud of the way you've handled everything," David said, his voice filled with pride. Ryan smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "Thanks, Dad. I couldn't have done it without you." David nodded, looking out at the darkening sky. "Family is everything, Ryan. It's not always easy, but it's worth fighting for. And you've shown that you're willing to fight for us." As autumn gave way to winter, the family's efforts began to bear fruit. Kevin and Ava's relationship, while still fragile, showed signs of healing. They communicated more openly, addressing the issues that had led to the rift. Their counseling sessions helped them rebuild the trust that had been shattered, and they found new ways to connect and support each other. Ian, too, made progress in mending his relationship with Kevin. He visited more frequently, each visit a step towards reconciliation. The brothers had long conversations, sometimes heated, but always with the goal of understanding and forgiveness. Ryan often found himself acting as a mediator, helping them navigate the difficult emotions. The holiday season brought a sense of renewed hope. The family decided to spend Christmas together, a symbolic gesture of unity and commitment to healing. They gathered at Kevin and Ava's house, the air filled with the scent of pine and the warmth of holiday cheer. As they sat around the dinner table, sharing stories and laughter, Ryan felt a profound sense of gratitude. The journey had been long and arduous, but they had faced the challenges head-on and emerged stronger. The bonds that had been tested were now fortified, and the love that had been strained was reaffirmed. Kevin raised his glass, a smile spreading across his face. To family, we've been through a lot, but we're still here, together. And that's what matters most. They all raised their glasses, the clinking sound a testament to their resilience and unity. As they enjoyed the meal, Ryan looked around the table, feeling a deep sense of peace. Despite the trials and tribulations, they had found their way back to each other. In the quiet moments after dinner, as they sat by the fireplace, Ava turned to Ryan with a grateful smile. "Thank you, Ryan, for everything. You've been a rock for all of us," she said, her eyes filled with sincerity. Ryan shook his head, a humble smile on his lips. "We're a family, Aunt Ava. We take care of each other. And I'm just glad we're all here together." As the fire crackled and the room filled with the soft glow of the flames, Ryan felt a sense of closure. The journey had been difficult, but it had also been transformative. They had faced their darkest moments and emerged with a renewed sense of love and commitment to each other. Winter turned to spring, and with it came a sense of renewal. The town blossomed with new life, and the family's bonds continued to strengthen. Ryan watched as Kevin and Ava's relationship flourished, their love deeper and more resilient than before. Ian's presence became a regular part of their lives again, the rift between the brothers healing with time and effort. Ryan found peace in the knowledge that they had overcome the challenges together. The secrets and betrayals that had once threatened to tear them apart had ultimately brought them closer. They had learned the importance of honesty, forgiveness, and the unbreakable strength of family. As the warm spring sun bathed the town in light, Ryan stood on the porch, looking out at the blooming flowers and the vibrant life around him. He felt a sense of contentment, knowing that they had weathered the storm and come out stronger on the other side. The future held its own uncertainties, but Ryan was confident that whatever came their way, they would face it together. The lessons they had learned and the love they shared would guide them through any trials that lay ahead. In the end, it was the strength of their family that had seen them through the darkest times. And it was that same strength that would carry them forward, united and resilient, ready to embrace whatever the future held. In the end, Shattered Trust, the tale of a cheating wife and the road to redemption, is a poignant reminder of the power of forgiveness and the resilience of family. Despite the betrayals and the emotional turmoil, Ryan and his family discover that love and understanding can mend even the deepest wounds. As they move forward, strengthened by the trials they have faced, their story becomes one of hope and renewal. Join us as we conclude this heartfelt journey, showing that even in the darkest times, the light of forgiveness and the bonds of family can guide us through. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that touch the heart and soul.